Testarossa has to find Redout's ditch. He lunges and wins. Redout's Choice beat Testarossa. It's Sunline by a length. Lonro trying to level up. A great battle. Sunline, Lonro. Lonro's getting to the great mare. And Lonro beats Sunline.
He has dashed away Weekend Hustler by 2 to Scenic Blast with 150 to go. Then further back marching, getting out and running home well. But a new star emerges. Weekend Hustler is brilliant in the Guineas.
Poor Judge More Joyous. She digs in for the fight with a big weight now. She takes the lead. More Joyous wins. So you think went to the 200, 3 in front, Hoobie got you, tries hard, makes no impression. Elko Popper's running on down the outside, but it is all so you think. Look at him go. This is poetry. But it is all about Black Caviar. She went past the 200, lengthening by 4 lengths. Away she goes. What a champion. Blackheart Bart won't go away, but Winks is too good. Far too good. The Autumn Sun, 3 or 4 lengths in front. A serious race. Animo the stronger. Animo won the Guineas. Alligator Blood looking for a 5th Group 1 at the 150, led 3/4 of a length from I'm Thunderstruck, who can't get there. Then Mr. Brightside, but the gate has done it again. But Asfura has dropped Uncommon James. 100 metres to go. Asfura for Mitch Aiken. 3 or 4 lengths in front. And she's a bonny mare, Asfura bolted.
Now on PG Podcast Network, it's time for the year-round carnival with Vince Accardi and your host, Racetrack Ralphy.
Yeah, rolling in with a little bit of Accardi. It's Caulfield Guineas preview day for year-round carnival. Thanks so much for getting, of course, that audio of the race calls, courtesy of racing.com. Some absolute stars shine on this day, and we can't wait to do it tomorrow with Vince Accardi from Daily Sectionals. Hello, mate.
Good morning, Ralphie. Here we are on another super day.
Super day. Looks like it's going to be a super day weather-wise tomorrow, as far as no impact on the track itself. So nice and simple. Get it out the road early. Caulfield, Rail True. How do you expect it to play?
Well, I reckon, firstly, recent trends show that the track's got plenty of speed in it, so I expect that to continue. It doesn't make it that easy to get into the lanes, but in those big fields, maybe they can get out really late in the day, Ralph, when those few big races on that you could come 10, 11, 12 off the fence and get yourself an edge. But I'm expecting most of it, all the action to be on pace, stalkers, maybe midfielders. But late in the day, I'll be more sort of positive on the midfielders, back markers.
Yeah, I actually saw a clip go out on X during the week from Channel 7 Racing. How did Super Seth get there? Well, tell me how we got there. A bloke like Mark Zara knows where the best lanes are on the track on this type of day.
That's it.
Very simple. All right. Now, we're not going to take long on the Caulfield Stakes, unfortunately, with just 4 runners. How are you expecting the Caulfield Stakes to unfold in race 6? With just like I said, a small field. It's pretty logical that Globe's going to lead. Globe's been leading quickly. This is interesting because he's been leading quickly, taken on in the end. He had in quotation marks a pest with hard to cross at Sandown, but flew. The general rule of racing is when they go super fast, they're not going to go as fast next time, and now he's going to not go fast without any pressure on him.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting, isn't it, Ralphie? Is it possible it's going to be Super Tactics minus 15-20. Is that possible?
Well, I guess it's possible, but I would say that gives Globe no chance if Blake goes too slow.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was feeling the same way when you look at the history of Globe. I mean, realistically, with the exception of a few runs, the horse never runs below benchmark. I'm just sort of trying to understand. Usually, when they're this small, Ralphie, they're going to go slow. But I hope Blake decides to say, "Let's go," and let's run from the start. That would at least make it a contest. But I guess you're right, Ralphie. If they don't go fast, which is what I'm forecasting, then they're not going to go fast, then it puts Globe in a lot of challenges because it just makes it easier for A, Buckaroo, and B, Treasure the Moment.
There will be someone in to take the short odds and Treasure at the moment, so I won't take too long on the race. But just in a nutshell, I thought it was a back-on-track run at Moonee Valley. Pride of Jenny led them along. Didn't go as fast as Pride of Jenny can go, and that made it even harder for us. So what's your assessment of Treasure of the Moment for tomorrow from that Moonee Valley race in comparison to Buckaroo?
Well, it's crazy as it sounds. Its biggest advantage is going to come if the speed's not there. It does have that big 400-metre sprint. But if I look at, say, if you go and have a look at that run, Ralphie, going back to sort of September last year, there was that run at Sandown where last 400 was like plus 6.9 off, moderate speed, 4.5 below benchmark early, 5.5 below in the mid. And that was the sort of kickdown we seen with the horse. And then there was that scenario last campaign at Randwick where the horse put down that plus 9.6. Now that was off a big crawl, right? Minus 27. Yes.
Yeah.
And it just went bang. And then you're right about back on track at the Valley. That's huge mid-race move. 3.4 below, massive extension, 8.6. So this horse has got that big 400-metre weapon, and the only way to diffuse it is putting pace in the race. So that's its best chance, in my view. No pace helps the horse tremendously, makes it extremely difficult to beat. Buckaroo, I feel, probably can match it with the acceleration if we get into this sort of 400-600-metre sprint. And will the horse be behind or in front of it when they take off? Indicators sort of point behind it. Therefore, you've got to give it a little bit of a head start. And do you have that? This is Buckaroo. Does it have that capacity to out-sprint a horse like Treasure of the Moment by 1 or 2 lengths? I reckon they're very similar, Ralphie, in their 400-metre close. The only thing that I will give an edge to Buckaroo on is I feel Buckaroo's sustained speed at a high level is better than Treasure of the Moment.
Okay, so under a circumstance that if let's say Blake took off at the top of the hill, Caulfield Hill, 1,000 out, that could make it more of a sustained test, and that would be more advantageous for Buckaroo. Yeah,
I'd want to be on Buckaroo to win it.
Okay.
to beat Treasure of the Moment anyway.
All right, let's get to some proper races as far as the field size is concerned. Starts with the Toorak handicap. First leg of the quaddie, Willie Do It goes out. There's 10 runners there. Fascinating little race because if someone said to you, well, it's all right, Vince, this is what's going to happen. Seppels is absolutely guaranteed to return his figure from 3 weeks earlier from the 1400 to the mile. Well, you couldn't get set for enough. So that's probably the forecast as far as can Seppels hold it, because how good was he in the Rupert Clark?
Yeah, that was firstly, I feel that's one of probably 2 races so far that we've seen in the last month that would be like off the charts, sensational power in terms of how strong the race is going to be. And here we have it in that race there, 9.7 above first split time. This is Seppels off a hot pace, as you know, Ralphie. They didn't muck around in terms of speed. 1.9 above, still between the 8 and the 4. Expect that decline to take place. It did decline, but it didn't decline enormously. I felt, the 4 to the 2 versus the last 200 metres, the indicator was that the horse was actually rebounding with this. So there might have just been a little bit of the slows between the 4 and the 2. So given that's the scenario, that sort of also gives the signal that you couldn't have got to the top of the horse in terms of its ability.
Wow. All right. But and we've seen horses like well, no, Trusted August comes to mind because we're high fiving in the old Carnival studio. When they run well in the Rupert Clark, they really run badly in a Turak.
Yeah, and I'm glad it's the 21 days because
Yes.
I was concerned about big run like that. If you've got a 14-day backup, it's pretty hard to step into that situation unless they're a 3-year-old. But 21 days, you'd have to say, well, we're over that. And I guess the speed is going to be there within reason. And this has got to be the starting point. It's not the only chance, but it's definitely the starting point.
Yes. So with your the early edition, and we'll smooth that over overnight, and we'll talk business tomorrow. But obviously, Ferrucci then pops up second, and Ferrucci beat Seppels last prep when Seppels probably peaked at Flemington mid-February, and then it was an end of prep miss. So is there a query about the mile, or is it just a matter that he had enough runs? Whereas Ferrucci, we know he's won at the mile, but the reality is at the moment that PB was set last start when running third to Seppels. It was a very, very good performance.
It was an outstanding performance second up. Of course, didn't do anywhere near the same work as the winner, and I don't feel they're going to go as fast. Whilst I feel there's going to be good tension, it's unlikely they're going to be going plus 9 or 10 through that first section. It's probably going to be more like plus 5 or 6, Ralphy, or maybe even plus 4. So I'm always going to say it's going to be a genuinely almost a second slower. It's going to have a lot of different complications for horses. Now, in terms of Ferrucci, it's not going to be against the horse. It's definitely going to work for the horse as well. That last start run, every split time strongly above benchmark. I did see the decline take place, Ralph, from about the 500 metre mark to the finish line. Overall, the horse lost around a length, I feel, in total conditioning, just purely based off the data. And therefore, expect this horse to rise, I would say, to another new PB, maybe add a length. Now, is that going to be enough to close out a horse like Seppels? Because it feels like Seppels come back better.
Well, but the point being that Ferrucci's $12, and if you expect it to improve again off that run, it's going to run a really nice race each way, or particularly for multis, because that sounds like it's a good value play. So let's bracket Evaporate and Transatlantic, not just from the fact that there was nose between them at Sandown in what was a fantastic race to watch visually, but also, I suppose there's a query, which doesn't sound like you're overly you're overly negative, but nonetheless, Seppels came back and had a huge peak in the Rupert Clark. Whereas it does seem that these horses, even though all three are third up, that both Evaporate and Transatlantic have had the perfect prep to peak tomorrow, whereas Seppels already has shown a big peak. So how do you pull apart Evaporate and Transatlantic from a set to peak point of view?
Yeah, and I probably want to throw pinstripes in as well, Ralphie.
Oh, of course, I'll get the pinstripe because I reckon that's a massive chance for a multi at worst.
Yeah, because I feel that one looks, heavily overlooked from a market point of view anyway. But Evaporate, Ralphie, it's trending to the +1 at the moment. Maybe we could go to the outer reach of +2. So that's where the trend is. And what it's done first up, yes, there's a clear signal that this horse has also come better, but that just sort of takes you to the top of the trend. I'm asking myself, where will the horse find that extra 2 or 3 lengths? Now, when I look at this horse, it is absolutely going to need tension up front. If it doesn't have that, if that pace isn't there, I feel it's a negative for the horse because its biggest asset is high pressure race. It's much more inferior, I feel, if they just run orderly, because when you look at the blueprint of the horse, there's no big sprints in it. So it just loves it if it can just have plenty of pace up front. Got obviously fantastic aerobic capability and probably makes it really difficult for a lot of other horses if you have that setup. And so I feel that, again, you got Shinny on board. He's probably going to want to put some pressure on, at least some, but I can't see how they're going to go like what Seppels did. That's probably the slight downside for Evaporate, and I'm also not sure if this horse is going to find that extra couple lengths. I'm a little bit cold on that horse. Transatlantic, on the other hand, when I look at that performance, see, firstly, Ralphy, we do have a performance with this horse that can sit up around +3 range.
Yes,
which
he was regularly in Sizzlers in Queensland, and
yeah,
if you look at that quick backup win in Eagle Farm, because of what you've just outlined, what he's shown is tactical versatility. He can produce pace, but he can also show a turn of foot if required.
Yeah, and I love that, right? It's just a really, really good sign the horse has got capability. This horse absolutely has a massive sprint on it. And again, it's crazy as it is, it's going to rely on certain race shape for it to bring its best out. And that's also a challenge for the horse, because probably its best is if they can run orderly. If they run orderly, which is a big chance of that happening, and for me, orderly in this race will be 3-4 lengths above benchmark. That primes this horse into a fantastic situation and could then be... It could be a threat. It could be a threat, a possible threat. You know, this race would be a lot different if Seppels wasn't in it. So, yeah, I still feel it's behind it.
Sounds like you're nice and happy with Seppels, and we'll talk business tomorrow. But because you opened the door before we get to a couple of the mares, pinstriped, here's what I'll start with. I've gone through the Rapro system and did exact distance. He's run the best 4 mile times and 6 of the best 8 mile times historically in this race. So you want to be careful underestimating, particularly it looks like he's going to get the best run of all time.
Yeah, and he loves dry tracks, Ralphy. Yep. And then if you just look, that we couldn't have got a clearer signal than that last run. The horse is actually right on the rise. That first up run, -1, when you look at that in isolation, say, okay, he's behind. But he's an older horse. So that could mean a couple of things. Number one, older horse might not refine the form. Then he's turned up second up and had a massive reversal. And I feel this is overlooked, Ralphy. From 16.8 lengths below benchmark to +6.8. That's a huge turnaround in speed and in the mid. What do you expect? The horse is going to collapse. And I feel just off that alone, probably blew the horse out to Kingdom Come in terms of pricing. But then last run, that was the deciding factor. It's that crossroad. Okay, did it really take the sting out of you that first section? And that's the reason why you just blew up. Now you've got to come back and run a race. And it did. 6.8 first section, +2.2 in the mid, and actually matched its previous start first split time, improved on it in the second, and then look at the close variation. The close variation over the last 400 was 15 lengths, just franking how much the horse had come on from one run to another. And you said it about the mile profile. This is a fair income danger, and it's the rank outsider in the market, and they got it. I'm absolutely confident they've got it completely wrong with this horse.
Nice. As much as $31 is about. Lazura, we often talk about this when it comes to big races, about what a pattern trader Chris Waller is. So I just want to put this little layer onto it for you before we talk about it, because last prep, third up, exploded at Rosehill over 1,500. It's third up tomorrow. Now, it was a bit workmanlike, I call it, at Flemington last start, and you know it was $2.10. It was sort of filling in a blank in a bit of a scramble. But I just wonder, Vince, is there a chance that second up was a flat run win after such a big first up run and win at Randwick on heavy ground?
Well, I look at it like this, Ralphy. Huge improvement in early speed. Yep. That makes it tough for the horse from first up to second up and going up 200 metres. Also quicker in the mid, and fantastic extension over the last 400, +5.5, even when compared to the first up run. And there's no doubt that it felt the effects of that heavy track and was still too good in the sense that it was able to hold and get victory. So now the question is this: what sort of shape does this horse need to be able to win this race? Because it is definitely got to rise beyond. I mean, I felt that this horse at best would improve 2 lengths from last campaign at best. Now, if that happens, then we probably end up with a +3. That's going to be short of what you need. But if they went slow, Ralph, and there's no pace, and this horse finds the lanes, it's probably got the best 400 in the race. Last 400.
dangerous.
Yep.
Yep. And speaking of the best 400 in the race, like a Lucy ran the best last 400 of the day when chasing Lazura. Now,
Yep.
the context, of course, is off a very slow pace. And if it's out the back again from barrier 10, that's going to make it very hard to get past all these horses. So what's your overview with like a Lucy?
Well, I was going to handball this one to you, saying, do you reckon this horse needs more ground? Is there something happening, like around 2,000 metres or further, a little bit later in the prep?
Yeah, I reckon there's a big circle around the matriarch last day of the Flemington Carnival with this horse.
That's it. Because I'm a bit negative on it tomorrow, Ralphy. I'm not saying that doesn't have the capability. At this stage, we're sort of borderline near benchmark. There is a possible scenario where you could make things interesting, but it needs to be a no-pace race. And if it is a no-pace race, then it's there as a threat. But I feel it's just going to need this run, Ralphie.
All right, we'll talk business tomorrow. Sounds like you can't think of a reason why Seppels won't be very hard to beat again, but Pinstriped, as of today, is the value runner. Let's look at the Caulfield Guineas here, Vince. Always easy to make trainers intent with a race like this. There's $3 million up for grabs, and if they're a colt, it's worth tens of millions to them as far as residual value. Generally, when it's a big field and it's full of colts, they go quick. How are you expecting the forecast tomorrow?
Yeah, I do feel there's going to be good pace as well, Ralphie. Could easily be running +2, +5. That'll be comfortable, especially late in the day, Ralphie. And if Caulfield plays like it has been recently, with excellent speed in the ground, I have to make the comment, like that horse from Hong Kong, and the way Zach Purton was talking about this when they did the trial on their Carnival Rise and said, we used to much firmer ground at Hong Kong. And I was going, I hope all the racing body heads listen to that very carefully about the power and the importance of having speed in the track, right? And
yes.
I feel Caulfield's been doing this. So I expect that. And then if that's the case, then you're going to have a few things come on here. Number one, we can be confident it'll be at least a +2, +4 minimum. You can be also confident in this big field that lanes could come into play and bring some other runners into the race. But it'll be a test. It's going to be definitely a test.
Well, the overview is this as a starting point. It's not always the end point, but it's always the starting point is talent and the talent that's been shown in the lead-in run, and that is the Sydney form at the moment, starting with Woden, Nord and Boy. They're going to bid on what's been produced in Melbourne.
Yeah. If you've ever seen like that perfect setup for an opportunity to win, if this is going to be a grand final day for Woden, you're looking at it. You're looking at it. This has got to be the best setup I've seen. Like it's near perfect, and the fact that I'm forecasting speed in the track. Just that last run alone, I thought it was fantastic by Woden. 2.1 above, first time that it had to dramatically rise above benchmark early. Still, really to be able to go even faster between the 8 and the 4 and go to +3.6, whilst it isn't the fastest the horse has ever gone in the mid, it was certainly right up there. And it only dropped out, realistically, like last couple of 100 metres with a 0.7 below benchmark. But if you look at the way the horse ground from start to finish, this is going to top this horse right off. Like, if this horse can't find a length to 2 lengths off that last start run, it's never going to, ever.
Well, that's a really interesting part as far as the pattern's concerned too, because it's not a matter of us looking for a pattern. It's a matter of it's clear that Chris Waller's a big pattern trainer when it comes to big races. And last prep, which was his first big booming, best last 800, 600, 400, 200 of the day on debut. But what happened at Ramwick leading into the Golden Slipper? He had him on pace and just sort of ground a bit. Midfield in the Golden Slipper, Luckless gets beaten a nose, fourth up. Tomorrow, no doubt, they'll go the midfield run. He's fourth up tomorrow, explode into a grand final. Everything points that the race shape will also suit the fact that Woden is completely set and has the exact same prep as last time in when he missed the Golden Slipper just by a nose.
Yeah, Ralphy. Only bad luck's going to stop this horse from finishing on the podium top three. Only bad luck, because if it blends in, it's got a sensational mid-race on it. Like, it is outstanding, the mid-race this horse has, one of the best in the field. And that's a big advantage at Caulfield if you've got that power. And then it's demonstrated. It's got excellent straight line speed. It's not like a booming like horse that'll have like a +8 or 10, but it's just so solid. You know, it's a rock solid +4, +6 range is how solid the horse is in terms of straight line speed. That's perfect, because as long as you're inside 6, the chance is there for you to reel them in.
I should actually add that I'd be very surprised if this price holds. It's mainly sort of mid to high threes because, of course, the Whirlpool's in operation from races 4 onward tomorrow, and with the Chris Waller set to peak horse ridden by J-Mac, who I think the big international teams are going to be smashing into this one. Time will tell.
Oh, that's painful. That's painful. You didn't have to mention that to me this morning, Ralphie.
Sorry about that. Let's ask about the stablemate Autumn Boy. Comes through the same race, but one race, as in its run prior, it was separated at Rose Hill. He ran over 1400 when it was a bit of an on-pace dominated day on the 13th of September. The 60s, he stablemate led throughout. He too probably has a bit of a set to peak profile on it, but probably a bit different in that he only had a short break. He's effectively, I suppose, been racing since June.
Yeah, it's interesting about this horse. I'm respecting it because, number one, the first up run, it was strong in terms of a 0.7 above benchmark. That puts you like in a great place in a race like this. But that last run, when I look at what it did first up versus second up, I'm wanting to understand for myself, right? You've gone from a 3 lengths below benchmark split time for to the 800, and then last start you go to +1.5. So you've increased your speed by 4.5 lengths. It's not monstrous. It's just solid. And then the mid-race, +1.8 last start. It's a 2.6 length increase from the previous run. And I look at the intel and say, how on earth did you go -2.3 last 400? Were you in that big a need of run? Because the data line's saying the horse was actually spent when it hit the 6 to the 400. It was done.
So it was covering ground, but I think your point is, even though it was covering ground, it was just not showing any impact. You know, it's one thing if it gassed out the last 200, you'd say, oh, fair enough, but it was pretty much not really a player by the turn.
No, so I look at it and say, all right, let's say that has cost you 3.5 from the 600 to the finish line all up, because that's your deterioration from that point. So if we add that back, that brings you to benchmark, right? So if you had the perfect run benchmark, well, you went for 0.7 up first up. Realistically, if all things went perfect and you thrive on the mile, you could go to a +2. But that's a big call. Like, I'm not willing to make that call, but I'm respecting it because it does have an above benchmark profile. Not a lot of horses do. So for that reason, I say, well, I've got to keep you there. But is there also the possibility that the horse gave up as well?
Well, of course, it's a possibility.
Didn't want to put in?
Yeah. It sounds like you're very keen on Woden. So let's just round off because you've the computer spat out Nepotism as the third most advantage, and I'll add Rivellino because they're the other two Sydney horses, and we have seen upset results in the Caulfield Guineas from underrated Sydney horses as far as the market's concerned. So just round off with Rivellino and Nepotism. Anything worth mentioning on those?
Well, firstly, the whole strategy around Nepotism is it's a winner at the distance. Has it come back a better horse so far? No, it hasn't trended. So there's been no trend on the horse. But where I'm a bit forgiving is when I just look at the data, Ralphie. First up, -7 first section, +4.9 in the mid. It's turned up and had to run significantly quicker last start, like almost 8 lengths quicker, nearly matched what it did in the midsection between the 8 and the 4. Okay, it was about 1.9 off, but even if when you realign it, there's a big gap. And I felt that 100% that the blowout late was all condition related. But it has to make a monumental leap. Not many horses can then find that 6 lengths or 7 lengths, but it is a winner at a mile and might get a favourable setup. So that's why I paid some respect to that horse. Rivellino, on the other hand, when you look at this horse's setup, like it's all golden. It's had the 3 runs. It should be ready to peak. Last start again, had to have a big lift in speed early, breaking benchmark for the first time in its life. It is not an easy feat for horses, but it did do that. In the mid, it was probably in line with what it's capable of doing. And Crazy had a taper towards the end. I felt that it was all impacted by that early speed. So, yes, improvements on the card, but it's only trending to benchmark, Ralphie.
Well, there's 3 Kiramar runners I want to ask you about.
Yep.
So the first one, but before that, I suppose one ties in with Vinrock. It's a bit of a headache horse, Vinrock. He's had a big boom on him, rightfully so, as the dual-size produce winner in Melbourne and Sydney. He looked like he was back on track with a good Flemington win, then was slowly away at Moonee Valley and just never really got going. So clearly, wide draw here. It's grand final day for the horse. Winker's back on after Winkers came off, hopefully to get him to jump cleanly. But is he in a position to be able to sustain a run?
Well,
wide?
If you look at that last run, there's plenty of merit on how much the horse lost, 8 to 6.9 above, and then it was all velocity drop until the last 200 metres. So you could probably add comfortably a couple of lengths back, Ralphie. That just puts you at around that, minus 2 to 3 range, right?
Yep.
Miracle. Needs a miracle tomorrow. A miracle.
All right, then the Kiramar runners. I'll go in market order. Firstly, Navy Pilot. Interesting runner. He smashed the line at Flemington and then looked a bit more workmanlike at Sandown, but under race shape situation. Jamie Mellon back on, replacing the apprentice. Clearly, it's a grand final, third up. So what type of projection can you put on this horse?
Well, just the way the horse closed out the last 400 off what I would have considered to be reasonable in terms of pace setup. Not only did the horse have a big leap in early speed as well from one run to the other, when you line up the last 400 of its last 2 starts, what was really evident, this horse is getting stronger and really thriving on distance. So all the indicators are this horse appears to have come back much stronger. All the data's saying that we've got no possibility of knowing what the ceiling is and does look set to break benchmark. So I've got to give it some respect from that point of view, definitely.
Western Swindon, we don't often do historics here, but there is one little historic screaming at me, and that is a couple of years back, Griff, militarised came through the Golden Rose form, but Ben Mellon from a wide barrier with a Kiramar trained horse that had won the Stud Stakes without doing much on the clock, led throughout, got an amazingly soft lead for a Caulfield Guineas, and he was a winner. And Western Swindon at the moment is actually trending to a similar setup there. Of course, it's unlikely to be a slow tempo tomorrow, but it can never be ruled out of being a possibility tomorrow. So how does Western Swindon line up for you?
Well, I thought the horse did well. First of all, won at a mile at the Valley, broke benchmark early. It's always a plus sign. Even though the overall last 400 was negative, the reality was I felt that was a little bit unfair when you look at energy distribution. It wasn't clean. There's clear evidence there suggesting that if the horse had perfect distribution of energy, you could add another length and a half to the performance, and that actually gets you to where you need to be. Even though the hurdle rate's like -2, Ralph, you know that to win this you have to break benchmark. And at least this horse, I feel, meets that metric, even though right now it hasn't broken benchmark. But if I smooth out the line, it's like right on that cusp. And why wouldn't it improve? Probably what it's not going to like if the hammer's on. Like if the tension is there right from the get-go, it's probably going to see this horse maybe slightly out of its comfort zone if it has to find the spot like where it needs to sit in running, because typically it likes to sit somewhere around that 3-4 lengths from the lead speed. but it might end up being another length or 2 lengths further back if the tension's right on.
There's a horse I'm not going to not spec, and it's big odds that I can make a case for it. I'm keen to see if there's a reason in the numbers to respect it. Number 16, Observer. It's not just Kieran Maher, but it's second start Kieran Maher. It was a James Cummings horse. Bolted in at Sandown looking like a bit of a horse on the rise, and then an end of prep mess at Flemington. And it was odds on for a reason, because when it was such a dominant win at Sandown. Looks like the numbers say it was a sound return at Sandown, even though it was a midweeker. Ethan Brown, proven big race jockey, in particular under a circumstance where, it's pressure off and just blend in at the right spot. Is there a case that Observer could run a big PB tomorrow?
Well, the big plus is it just looks like they've gotten this horse to relax, Ralphy.
Yes.
And that's huge, because to be able to do that, it's going to bring lots of advantages. And I love the fact that the horse could do that and offer, mind you, offer good pace even if that's Sandown, 1.5 below benchmark early, still finished very strong, +3 last 400 metres, untapped, easily trending to benchmark. It meets the minimum requirement. How far will it go? Well, if there's a dark horse in the race, if you want to call it a dark horse in the race that might really test Woden, it could be this horse.
Well, $31. So that's one to have a look at on the Friday. Let's have a look at the Scalacci. What a superstar he was, Vince. We're going back a bit now. We're looking forward as far as today, tomorrow's concerned. And it's a very, very competitive race. How are you expecting the speed of this to unfold over 1,100 metres?
I feel they're going to just jump and run, Ralphie. And, benchmark +2's got to be on the tables. Not a big field, but I'm working on the basis there's going to be speed in the tracks. The horses are going to love that. They're just going to want to run. And this is what we should be seeing, horses jumping and running and not, having to say, oh, it's a bit damp here, I don't feel comfortable stretching out. Absolutely.
Well, under that circumstance, particularly when there's a field of only 10, it's often pretty hard to get out in the lanes unless they completely overdo it, which was the case in this race last year. But under that circumstance, you'd have to think that Tropicus and Neons are probably going to control the lead with the likes of Golden Boom and Q-Man. So is there a case to be made that the lead pack are going to be able to get away from the proven Group 1 class in the likes of Giga Kick and Benedetta?
Quite possibly. That could be the case, Ralphie. But the beauty is you just got that one bend, so you don't have to lose any ground getting into the lanes, right?
Yes.
You just don't. You don't have to lose any of that. And it depends how the day's been panning out. And I guess if the first half of the card, everybody sees that, geez, if you're not up there, you're not going to be there. That might mean, your classic communication, Ralphie, overcompensation up front.
Yes. Well, that was this race last year for sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Could happen. Could happen here by that stage of the day. Either way, yeah, it is prone to be positive for on-pace runners.
All right, well, Neon's no doubt will be one of those on-pace runners, just sort of stalking from barrier 1 there, whether it's second line or third line, and very unusual profile. She's a 6-year-old, missed bits of racing and significant bits of racing, but look, she's already got performances here that say quality, and the GB stable, they just unbelievable. They're so lethal when the money's on, and they're happy with this horse. So at Moonee Valley, it wasn't her type of race. Can tomorrow be her type of race?
Yeah, well, that big loss of 2.5 lengths between the 6 and the 4, that screams for that horse's first up run. Should have broken benchmark, easily broken benchmark, and I wouldn't be surprised if the horse comes out and runs a new PB tomorrow, Ralphie, and just makes the 1.5 look a little bit ordinary.
Well, if it does that, and given your 1.2 forecast, it's going to require some pretty big closing performances from the likes of Giga Kick and Benedetta to catch it.
Yeah, maybe even Nadal. I'm not dismissing that horse.
I'll get to that as well. But the co-leader, likely co-leader, Tropicus and Golden Boom here. What do you make of Tropicus? Because, I thought the win was good first up. And I know this time last year he ran the Caulfield Guineas. He looks like one of those classic horses that looked like he was going to get more ground, and then they've said, okay, right, he's a sprinter, he's not a miler, we'll just concentrate on sprinting. And since they've done that, his form's been pretty faultless. So he also trialled alongside Giga Kick and Neon's on the, I think it was on the Heath track recently. So it looks like he's just had that tick over to peak. What type of performance did he do first up, and what type of projection can you give him?
Yeah, his first up run was fantastic. You have a look at the first two split times, Ralphy. 1.5 above first section, 2.7 above between the 8 and the 4, and then a complete blowout, holding its line though, but that minus 3.7. Have a look at how much it was impacted, and it won. So the 0.8 on the board, you know that you can not only take that to the bank with the 42 days off, but expect another level of upward climb, especially from this stable. I have no reason to doubt that they can't find another length or two minimum just off the run without doing anything extra. So this puts this horse potentially into genuine contention as a threat.
So where does Giga Kick fit in? Just what's he got? The best 5 performances in the race historically. He's got the best performance in the race over the last 12 months, which of course was 51 weeks ago in the Everest. His first up profile is interesting, and while you look at the distance, he's unbeaten at 1100, but they were 3 of his first 4 starts. So you sort of have to say the fact that that's not him now, and he's clearly aimed to peak on Champions Day, last day of the Flemington Carnival. So He should run well, but how does that mean he's a betting proposition, of course, is the question.
Well, I feel if he doesn't run well here, they can be dreaming about whatever they want. They ain't going to get it.
Yes.
Like, it has to turn up, because I actually feel the 1100 is perfect for this horse first up. It was a difficult horse to assess in terms of where do you pin it, but I just was struggling to find a really poor score for the horse. I just couldn't find it, Ralphie. No matter how I looked at it, I just said this horse has got to be able to run at least +1 here. I just don't feel it can run anything less. And if it does run anything less than that, then it would be a scary thing to try and look back in that horse into the future.
Yeah, it's a real fork in the road, and he's going to need to turn up. I think there's a little lead here, and that is Mark Zahra Road Tropicus first up, and I dare say he's committed himself to Giga Kick, knowing that big Group 1 is coming. So he's obviously pretty happy with the horse to go to Giga, to go from Tropicus to Giga Kick. I assume it was his choice, but obviously Tropicus, at least, you still got an elite jockey in lane. But I dare say Mark Zahra was happy to take the ride on Giga Kick.
Oh yeah, and you know that Zahra knows exactly where to find the lanes.
Benedetta first start, Kieran Maher. Trials have been quiet. I heard actually an interview with Kieran Maher. He said, the intel was that that's her. She's a race day horse. So what type of performance can she do first up if she comes to play?
Well, if we go back to February 24, first up, +1, that's pretty solid. Last campaign, -1.9. 1,000 metres, probably not 100% right for the horse. So realistically, the horse is very capable of doing superbly first up. Different setup in terms of the break as well. It's a lot closer to what it did back in 24 February compared to last campaign, where it had a long break, and the 1,000 metres, in my view, couldn't have been the perfect distance. So, yeah, I'm expecting this horse to run bold. This is not an easy race, Ralphie. I do expect this horse to run boldly and potentially be competitive. There are a number of other horses that look better, and there is this trend line that sort of indicates that no matter what the horse does first up, it's going to improve. I mean, I know it's logical thinking, but the intel sort of indicates that no matter what it does first up, it's going to improve 1 to 1.5 lengths. If that's the case, we probably can't see a first up run that's going to break +2. It's going to be probably more like that 1.5 range.
So I think both Giga Kick, Benedetta, and Nadal. So both of those, and then let's add Nadal, are all set first up to run well, but peaking Flemington down the straight 1200. Kieran Maher recently scratched Nadal. I think it was last Sunday actually. From a firm track, just said wanted him to be right. Now that could be an either or situation, just kick it off. But 294 days between runs, obviously had a couple of issues. But what he showed on Cranbourne Cup Day last year in that slot race, so let's underline that because it was such huge prize money. If you're looking at Cranbourne, you think, oh, it's just Cranbourne. No, it was $1 million slot race, and it was a big performance. So what type of performance can he do for a pretty lightly raced horse who's probably still got his best in front of him?
Well, so the big plus that it gets is it's probably the best cold runner in the field outside of Giga Kick. Like, it's just going to be out the back, and it's just going to unleash one run. And the run that it can unleash over the last 400, it's like, even I would say the last 600, right? But definitely the last 400. It's a monster closer. And that just oozes class. We never, ever seen what the peak is with this horse. This horse just kept trending. And this is why I'm always nervous when horses keep trending about, like, what is their ceiling and therefore what's a realistic baseline performance first up going to look like? And I just sit back here and say, well, you have to be foolish to think the horse, regardless of the setup, how can it not turn up and run at least +1? Because I feel it actually gets a golden race shape no matter what, even though it's going to be slightly at the back, because this is what you need in these sort of runs. Cold lanes, bang.
So I should round off because there'll be people thinking about putting him in the quaddie. They're both single-figure odds. Are you saying that both Golden Boom and Arabian Summer, given the closing quality of some of these others that you met, are going to have challenges to sustain their run up front?
Yeah, I'm negative on Golden Boom because of the setup. Yep. I just don't feel that's going to be, even though they're not going to be dramatically disadvantaged, I just don't feel it's right. It's going to be tension, and you're not going to have the finish to hold out a bunch of other horses in the race, and that, to me, is always the risk. Arabian Summer, on the other hand, does have a good 400-metre sprint, but it's about 3-4 lengths off what you need compared to 2 or 3 other horses in the race. Even if they didn't turn up and produce their best, they probably still got a few lengths on you in a sprint close.
Let's get to the last Northwood Plume Stakes over 1,200 metres for the mares. A couple have had good peak performances, none better than She's Bulletproof from Oakley Plate, but it's a matter of is she going to bring that after a disappointing run. Fancify is the favourite, terrific first up run. She's got a big peak at Melbourne Cup Day, but that was at 1,400 metres. And Amina, well, we put a big circle around her from a Moonee Valley run saying that this is the hidden run and it's all set to peak. So the question is, can she do that tomorrow? Are you expecting the pace of this to unfold?
Yeah, I feel the pace is going to be reasonable, Ralphy. 1,200 metres, slight extension off the 1,100. Everything sort of points to low, benchmark -0.5, high +2 to 3 range.
Well, under that circumstance, you've got at most advantage on your early edition here. I'm just this is the Marks R report, isn't it? Just midfield into the Caulfield lanes and then see if Mina's good enough.
Oh, for sure. This like what a way to finish off the day with Mark Zara with this horse. You know that the horse, just on its capabilities, genuine +2 horse, Ralphy. Like, this is fantastic. So smashes the hurdle requirement for this race. I look at the setup through the first 2 runs. All we've seen is improvement and improvement. Particularly last start, I felt that the race shape was against the horse, the way the horse travelled through that first section, 6.8 lengths below benchmark. But you couldn't hide the horse. I mean, the way the horse stormed over the last 800 metres, combined 8.7 lengths last 800 metres, fantastic. And they were matched between the 8 and the 4 was +4.4, and it was virtually identical for the last 400 metres. Rock solid. Yes, slight taper overall. All that means is upside. It's ready to test its PB.
I did make a point of listening to a couple of interviews just to see if the traders' thoughts were matching sort of what the numbers are showing, and I think Sam Freeman almost laughed and made a point of this is one of the easier races she's been in.
I love that.
We're going to love that. So Fancify, be very interesting what the market's going to continue to do. So the early market's been a big push for it in the mid-3s. By the way, I mean in mid-4s. And yes, she was good first up, but Is she the type who's better at 1400 owning a race as opposed to at a sustained 1200?
Well, it is a winner at 1200, so we've got to respect that. So we know the horse can do it. But yes, is it better? Probably. That Moorfield run, though, first up was solid, Ralphy.
Yeah,
it was
absolutely.
2.1 below benchmark, first section. Didn't do a lot of work in the middle, just improved the speed by a length and then reeled off that really strong last 400 metres, plus 5.1. That's a nice rounding run for this, and you wouldn't have burnt all the speed out of the horse's legs either, Ralphy, because this horse has got speed. Like he can cope with pressure, so it's probably going to like this race setup. Are we going to see a PB tomorrow? Well, the indicators are we should be at least matching what it did 2 preps back at Flemington, but that was over 1400, like you touched on.
She's bulletproof as the headache horse because she's got genuine talent. She was horrible first up. She's since had a jump out win. The other thing that screams at me, and I hate seeing mares who don't have excuses suddenly have an excuse. Craig Williams off. He's riding another horse in the race, Caravas, and he's been a big part of her journey, which tells you it's a suggestion. I don't know, maybe Ben Allen's with the stable now full time, but it is a suggestion, sort of saying that he's lost a bit of faith in the horse.
Well, I sort of initially had the same sort of feeling, but what you can't deny is that last start. This horse is a dead set dry tracker, Ralphy.
Right. Okay.
And this is what I feel like. This horse's best is on dry ground. When you look carefully at its dry track profile, it's outstanding. No, last starter was a massive drop-off. That brings a few concerns about the stable. How good's that stable really? But if I'm saying, okay, when I look at these sort of stables, I say the horse trains themselves. And then I look at what happened here in that first up run, how big the drop-off was, plus the fact that I feel this horse is much better suited on dry ground. You look at any of its 5 runs of last campaign, pick any of the 5 or 6 runs, there's nowhere you see this horse running below benchmark, nowhere. And I just sit back here and say, well, this is perfect for you. And then you look at that last run it had at Moonee Valley before it went out. What did we get? We got a wet track, and the horse didn't deliver. Now, it could be, end of prep, could be a lot of reasons. Yeah, I get it, right? But dry track, rebound, expect it. No matter what happens, the horse is going to improve superbly off that first up run. Now, is that going to be enough to win this race? Well, it's certainly going to be enough to be competitive. Whether it can beat a mean or not is a completely different discussion, right? But the reality is, I feel the horse will be competitive. Now, Willow's gone off and he's gone to another horse. Okay, that's fair enough. Well, I'd like to see what that horse is going to do.
Let's get to Vestas, because I call this a hype horse that obviously showed a lot of promise early in its career. It's lightly raced, didn't come up last prep, and it's had 2 good jump outs leading in. But gee, it's short considering we know what the level of Amina is, and Vestas rather has to genuinely improve from what it did first up. What is there something in the numbers that could make punters confident here at the single figure odds?
Well, the Mornington run, if I look at that in isolation, you can understand why, potentially. Almost benchmark first section. Plus 2.6 above between the 8 and the 4, and then a screaming last 400 of plus 6.2. So if we're looking at it purely from that angle, there's a case to be made. The reality is, for me, the way I look at it is you've got to turn up and run well above benchmark. You haven't proven it yet. Yes, are you closing out strongly? Are you doing all those things right? Yeah, absolutely. But here you are, first up. Yeah, maybe it could surprise. And for me, that is, could surprise and win. But at this stage, I actually want to see the horse come out and deliver.
I think the improvement could be She's Got Pizzazz, and I think of the way it sort of improved at last prep. It did sort of not much first up, and then was narrowly beaten this track, this distance when Craig Williams rode it, and then it went and won at Sydney. So it's, to me, almost like it was a kickoff run here 3 weeks ago, and it's going to get dramatic improvement off it. Is there a case to be made at $14 to think about it for multis?
If the pace's not there, 100% Ralphie. If there's slackening of the speed and they don't run anywhere near benchmark, and that can happen, right? They could easily be running -1 to 4 range. Then all of a sudden, this is dangerous. You just got to be confident. Will that happen? I mean, you've got the right rider on board. There's a lot of pluses with the horse, but my view is at the moment, I just feel there's going to be more speed. It just sort of dulls this horse just a little bit, not to the extreme like you're not capable, because I mean the horse is borderline benchmark, so it's not like it's not capable. Could we sit here? I can't sit here and say, oh yeah, the horse is peaked, it's never going to improve. We just see it all the time with mares. They keep evolving if they're lightly raced. So why wouldn't this be the case with this horse? It could easily do that.
All right, we're going to go right above benchmark for the last 5 races, just to touch on a few points. Firstly, King Zephyr's very short, and it's got a rightful boom on it. But interestingly, on your early edition race speed profiles, which is more of a computer printout, and then you'll smooth it tomorrow for the final edition. But it's third at the moment behind Zoo Sensation Amenable. So the question is why?
Yeah, why? Exactly. I can't see it around. I mean, Zoo Sensation's run was just phenomenal last start, Ralphie. This is the, make no mistake, that's going to come out to the forefront tomorrow, that this was a super strong race. Now, the only negative that I could find with Zoo Sensation is maybe the horse peaked. So if it peaked and it can't hold that line anymore, because that was its peaking run and it's going to go sideways or downwards, then I could understand why it's not the favourite. But under any other circumstances, there's no way you couldn't have this horse on top of the market. It should be on top of the market.
Well, it's $5 and King Zephyr's $1.70.
Now, King Zephyr, on the other hand, it's going to be it's a gunner horse. The big plus, if you want to look at it and say, okay, what's the big plus? Well, the big plus is the way it closed out last start. The plus 9.2. Yeah, everybody gets excited. I get excited. But I've got to be a realist. It came off a no-speed race. Now, if this is the same, and they're just dawdling, and they're running 6 to 10 lengths below benchmark, then it's justified. The horse should be favourite and the one to beat, because no one's got a 400-metre sprint in this field like this horse. But that's if you're confident that's what's going to happen, because this is its greatest asset. It's just got a phenomenal elite level sprint. It's electric, but off no speed. Like even the run before at the Valley, yes, it was 4 lengths below benchmark early, but they actually softened a little bit between the 8 and the 4, and they was travelling 5.1 below between the 8 and the 4, and then just putting that booming last 400, and that's the asset of the horse. Those sort of sprints make these horses short all the time. Some people call them ambulance chasers, Ralphie.
Race 4 in the program here. Again, well worth touching on. Well, we mentioned Zoo Sensation coming from the Rupert Clark. Of course, the starting point of the day, I suppose, was that Seppel's win, and we deep dived on that. Well, Jenny Lala also comes through the Rupert Clark, and again, your computer spat that out on top from O2 Good, Molly Bloom, Pondalowie, See What I See. Jenny Lala's a terrific price here at $6 each way, and O2 Good, to me, the standout, it's obviously got a very good chance, but gee, mid-twos is pretty short for it too.
Well, Ralphie, firstly, there's no way. Well, I shouldn't say no way. I'm silly when I say those things. Let's say there's a much lower possibility of this race being run at the same sort of pace as what Jenny Lala was faced with last start. That's what I want to put down. 8.4 above the horse went, Ralphie. First up. Unbelievable, right? Now, this horse is capable of eating up pressure. But that was like a new PB. Still travelling 2 lengths above benchmark between the 8 and the 4. This is doing it first up. Of course you're going to have a drop-off. 4 lengths drop-off late. It's got that mandatory 21 days. It's second up, right stable, perfect rider. How is this horse going to run below that?
Oh, blinkers off too.
Yeah. Well, this
Relax.
is what I'm just asking myself that question. How do you run below that?
All right, well, worth looking at. Let's touch on the Herbert Power here. Favourite for race is Plymouth. The Hayes team have got quite a few success stories from the late Mike Moroney. You know, the headline horse, of course, is War Machine, but looks like they got this horse back on track too with a dominant win in the Benalla Cup. Is it trending the right way?
Well, it was top 10. It loves it when it can just cruise around, not high speed. Didn't break the clock from my perspective, but it's improving and trending potentially to a PB. And I'm working off the run at Flemington back on the 13th of 9 is the real gauge.
Yep.
On what the horse did in that particular race, and it was an overall 1.8 lengths below benchmark. Last start, there was no pace either in that race at Benalla. Didn't score highly, but it was a top 10 finish. There's a little bit of a drop-off over the last couple of 100 metres of a length, sort of indicating there's still more to come. That's probably enough to get it back to its PB of last campaign, which is bang on around that benchmark, maybe plus a half.
I don't want to not say that Post Impressionist we always have to underline is the biggest talent at the race, and Sam Freeman made a point of saying that it's short of a run in August, but first up at 2,500 and then staying at 2,500, he thinks he might have the horse right now. So is there a case to be made for Post Impressionist?
Well, the big thing is this. How do horses win races when they've got to do these phenomenal, mid-race moves? I mean, that last start, seriously, a 25.7 length mid-race squeeze. That's like at the top of the game for this horse in terms of squeezes. If this is a little bit of tempo and they're running reasonable speed, 6-10 lengths below benchmark, firstly, that's all going to be added as a positive for this horse in terms of energy distribution, because all of a sudden it's not going to have to produce a 26 length mid-race squeeze. It's probably going to have to do a 15 or 16, and all of a sudden it could find itself in the race and potentially looking the winner.
Worth mentioning there, race 2 on the program here. Point Barrow was an absolute coma job at Moonee Valley. Caulfield, one Ben looks better for it. How does she stack up coming into this race, the favourite?
Yeah. At the moment, Ralphy, the horse has had 3 runs, and it's sort of, in some cases, like a bit of a sideways trend. And I'm being a little bit unfair with the horse in terms of when I say sideways trend, is even that last run, that shape wasn't to its liking. Almost, 7 lengths below benchmark early, didn't help. Yes, there was a decent move in the middle, but it wasn't heavy. The horse was still travelling 1.2 lengths below benchmark. Very strong last 400. Just giving you one signal. I'm nowhere near my top. That's what it's saying. So the question is this. If the race was won 3-4 lengths faster, the horse probably goes near benchmark. Now, if it does that, look at the hurdle rates. It's 4 lengths below benchmark. Probably going to wipe the floor in the field.
Nice. And I just want to round off by asking you about Mr. Verse, because, I think this is a super setup for Mr. Verse compared to what it had to put up with last start. What's your thoughts on Mr. Verse?
Mr. Verse. Yeah. You find all the good races, don't you, Ralphy?
Hopefully.
Yeah. So had a few runs, Ralphy. There is a chance for a benchmark run. I just felt that run at Sandown, half a length below benchmark. That sort of feels like where the horse is at and what it's capable of. But then you look at that last run over 2,000 metres, it lost 3.1 lengths in the middle. Probably completely unfair, and actually in some cases helps the horse into this particular race. But we are looking at a benchmark horse, Ralphy. You got a big game.
It won't be you, we know that.
No.
All right, there's a big deep dive hour. We really appreciate you being a customer year-round Carnival. Tomorrow we talk business. There'll be a 10-15 minute podcast that we'll get through to you, particularly once scratchings are through and final thoughts to go with your final edition of Race Speed Profiles. In the meantime, thanks so much for being a customer year-round Carnival.